Thank you, Cahill. Some time ago I had questions on this subject previously in regard to carbon sequestration and the national inventory, and I was glad at that time to be told that Teagasc were carrying out research on the hedgerows to see how these could contribute to the carbon stock in agricultural landscapes. I also understood that by adding trees to the hedgerow it would be possible to increase the output storage of carbon in the hedgerow, and I would just want to know where those particular research projects have gone, and has our national inventory been finalised as yet? Thank you, Cahill.
Hannah.
Thank you, Deputy Smith, for the question. It is an important aspect and something a lot of people want to understand. You will probably be aware that the Environmental Protection Agency is responsible for the reporting of emissions and removals associated with land use activities on an annual basis to the EU and the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Hedgerows are currently accounted for under the grassland heading of the inventory. However, my department is undertaking much work to improve reporting of the land use change and forestry, the LULUCF inventory. On-farm carbon sequestration, particularly through our soils, trees and hedgerows, can make a significant contribution to the continued viability and sustainability of the agri-food sector. Therefore, I believe it is essential that all on-farm sequestration is accurately reflected in the national inventory. To that end, there are several initiatives ongoing at present which aim to reach that objective. Teagasc, as you outlined, in conjunction with FIRS Limited, has recently completed research to help improve the national estimation of hedgerow carbon sequestration in an EPA-funded project called Farm Carbon. This looked at a number of objectives, including quantifying the carbon stock of biomass, developing biomass functions based on volume measurements, developing a model to incorporate the land use mitigation potential associated with hedgerows, and I suppose quite importantly the development of an integrated scorecard for assessment along the best management practices for carbon and other ecosystem services that will be developed. So essentially the research found, and I suppose it's not surprisingly, that increasing hedge width and hedge height can substantially increase both above and below ground carbon sequestration while also enhancing biodiversity. But I suppose it is clear that all hedges are not equal when it comes to sequestration. So within the Teagasc Signpost Farms programme, also the soil organic carbon baseline levels are currently being measured across 100 signpost farms, with these soils being resampled regularly. Teagasc research using projects such as the National Agricultural Soil Carbon Observatory and the Signpost Farms aims to improve the measurement of carbon sequestration and focuses on improving estimation of carbon sequestration in hedgerows and on farm woodland. I'm confident, however, that in addition to the research mentioned above and with improvements being made in hedgerow mapping, that the EPA will shortly have sufficient data to better reflect hedgerow carbon sequestration in the national inventory.
Thank you, Cahill, and I thank the Minister for her reply. Minister, I think it's very important, as you mentioned in your answer to me, that we at all times take into account, just in comprising our national inventory, but also in public commentary, that very important on carbon sequestration is through our soils, trees and hedgerows. Sometimes that's often missed out of the public debate, and I think it also helps to increase biodiversity. One area, Minister, that I tabled questions on, I think in the past, to the Department of Transport was in relation to the potential that there is to use large areas of roadside verge for the growing of trees. Now, I'm not talking about compromising safety along roads, but I'm talking about using a lot of public space could be put to good use in the growing of trees and also an increasing biodiversity. And I think that done properly, it could be an effective climate change measure, and it could also play an important part in what we all want to see in biodiversity recovery. It's an area, Minister, it's not particular to this question, but I think it's one that we should factor in ensuring that we use public spaces as best as possible, and that everything is in our national inventory factored in as well. Thank you,
No, absolutely, and I totally agree with what you're saying. And alongside the work that's being done on hedgerows, as I said, Teagasc are doing work as well in relation to soil carbon. And what affects the losses and sequestration there. Mapping is important, but I think certainly in relation to public spaces, and I think maybe this is where the mapping aspect will come in. So we do identify those areas where there are trees in public spaces, but my department actually supports public bodies to plant trees on publicly owned lands, and it's been relatively successful. It's open currently so whether it's local authorities, whether it's and other public bodies that might have a bit of space where they might want to plant some trees, they can engage with us, and my department will cover the cost of that. And ultimately, we will be factoring all of these plantations into our inventory. At the moment, even within the forestry sector, it needs to be an area over 0.1 of a hectare to be included in the inventory. So, I mean, there might be, maybe more flexibility required around that, smaller plots, for example.
Perfect. Thank you, Lascan Corner. Thank you, Minister. Minister, can you give me an assurance, and I think I took it from your reply already, that all small-scale planting and all small blocks of scrub are measured in the inventory? I think it's very important in that respect. And one other thing, Minister, is the department and the statutory agencies that work with the department, are they engaged in research across the global community? I know in my own time in the department we had a lot of cooperation with other research bodies throughout the world across different areas, including the whole area of forestry. I think it's very important that we have that collaboration, that we have access to that research for the common good, and that we participate in as many international research programmes as is possible. Thank you, Alaskan Corla.
Thank you, Deputy. I don't have to hand what collaborations are going on, but I'm sure we do engage, wholly with international research, particularly within forestry. You will be aware we have a challenge now that our forestry estate will become no longer a sink of carbon, and that's one of the challenges we face going forward. That in order to ramp up the planting of trees now in the next number of years to sort of offset that, but certainly the science isn't entirely clear. And it sort of continually moves in relation to, for example, planting on peaty soils and the effects of farming on peaty soils. That continues to move around, but I think we're fairly confident that we are, what we intend to do around supporting people to plant trees, supporting farmers to plant more hedgerows, and indeed supporting public bodies to engage in tree planting will all help us, deal with any challenges that lie ahead. Thank you.